Hey guys, well, it's the start of another week, which means it's another week of you and I both deciding what kind of choices that we are going to make. I cannot believe that this is now 12 months that we've been on this journey together. Yes, we have been talking to one another, well actually me talking to you and then you commenting, so kind of talking back, of Today I Choose. And it really began with the simplicity of that thought, that though I don't choose my circumstances and I don't control them all, though sometimes it's a great week and sometimes it's a really not great week, that I still have the power to choose my confession, to choose what I think about, to choose my actions. And our lives are being changed and our lives are being forged by the choices that we are making every single day. And so I love this journey. I love the fact that we've been doing it for so long and there still seems to be so much for us to talk about. I love reading. I've been reading this past few weeks so many of your letters and emails about the book. So if you don't know about the book, there's even a book to go with the series. And I know many of you have given this as a gift or have it somewhere on a coffee table. And this journal is our story of like our journey together through Today I Choose. And so we're choosing what we're reading, we're choosing what we're confessing, we're choosing what we're listening to. And all of those things are a growth in us as individuals. And that's kind of where I want to bring us to today, because I just want to throw a thought out there that I was thinking about and actually was talking to some younger leaders recently, and this just popped out of my mouth in the middle of our conversation. And I just said this: when are you going to allow the leader in you to show up? And so I'm asking you the same question. And it was because we were in a conversation about how people view leadership as some point where we arrive or we get the qualification or we finally get the microphone, as if that's what makes us now be a leader. But the fact is that leadership shows up the minute you allow it to. And I know that right now I'm raising my 2 teenagers and I'm trying to teach them something about that, because I'm trying to tell them, especially my son the other day, I had a conversation with him and I was like, you get to choose when the leader in you shows up. And the leader in you can show up in that conversation and say, I don't want to be part of this. The leader in you can show up and say, actually, I don't think that. I don't agree with that. I actually think this. Those are pivotal moments when we begin, however young or old we are, to allow the leader in us to start to have a voice. And, I think a lot of us maybe have not realized how much leadership there is inside of us. I think maybe we have looked to other people to be the leader in our lives, when there is a leader within every single one of us, I believe, that wants to get out. We are called to be the salt and the light on the earth, and we are called and commissioned to go out and lead people from dark places to light, from hopelessness to hope, from brokenness to restoration. That's all of our job. We're all anointed and called by God to do that in different measures and in different ways. But in order to do that, you have to allow the leader in you to come out, because our culture would say it doesn't matter. Our culture would say it's someone else's job. Just like the parable of the Good Samaritan. The Good Samaritan was someone who allowed the leader within him to step out. The leaders that had the badge and the leaders that actually were the qualified ones were the ones that crossed the street and ignored the problem. They should have come and helped the man that was at the side of the road, but the priest ignored it. The religious one ignored it, but the Samaritan, he allowed the leader within him to respond. And leadership within you often wants to roll your sleeves up, often wants to say, I'm willing to help. Even though it might not be your job, the leader within you wants to step up. I'm reminded of the story of the boy with the loaves and the fishes. I imagine that day when Jesus was teaching, there were thousands of people gathered. We know there were definitely 5,000 plus men alone. I imagine in that group of men, there were many people that had the title leader, whether they were a business owner or whether they were someone in the community that had a job that brought leadership, whether they were a religious leader, a teacher. They were in the crowd that day listening to Jesus. But not one of them was stepping out in that moment when food was needed to allow the leader in them to respond. In fact, Jesus asked the leaders with him, his own disciples, how to solve the problem. And they said, it's not our problem, Jesus, send them home. We don't even have enough money to deal with this. And a young boy, we don't know how old he was, but he was a young boy who'd been sent with a packed lunch from his mum, had something inside of him that I believe was leadership. And the leader within him decided to step up in front of the leaders around him and solve the problem by suggesting maybe what I have can be the beginning of a miracle. That's what I'm talking about. The leader within us has to show up and has to begin to speak out. And that can happen when you're 10 or it can happen when you are 98. You have to decide at what stage in your life the leader shows up. But here's what I know. The more you allow the leader within you to speak up, the more that voice gets more confident within you. The more there's a boldness that grows of the leadership inside you, just like it did for Esther. Think about it. Esther was this young girl who was inside this place where she had no voice, no authority. She was just another girl in the palace harem. And yet Mordecai knew he had placed within that girl leadership. And he knew, he had seen that was in her was the potential to make a difference. It's just that she hadn't allowed the leader within her to show up yet. And so when she realized this is an opportunity for me to step up and allow the leader within me to speak, she realized she was taking a risk and she had to be bold in that moment. But at the other side of her willingness to let the leader inside her lead was also this opportunity for her life to grow. And Esther, we know, stood up and approached the king. But then after approaching the king, Esther also took it a step further and became a bold and courageous leader. She would go on to have many different conversations where the leader within her would step up and that leader within her would end up saving an entire people. What about Rahab? Rahab had this leadership within her that she didn't even realize. I mean, her background was that she'd been a woman that had been used and abused by many men. That did not look like leading. But when it came to Joshua coming into her place and her town and Joshua needing someone to hide, she came up with the idea, you can hide here. But then she said to Joshua, this is what I'm talking about, the leadership within you. She said to Joshua, if I hide you, I need you when you come back to save me and my family. And she became a leader in that moment to save the men that were the leaders, but also to lead her family to a place of safety when they came back to destroy that place. That's what I'm talking about. Leadership within you looks like you stepping out in those moments, you asking the question that needs to be asked, you offering the lunch that needs to be offered, you suggesting a plan that no one else is suggesting, you crossing the road and reaching out and helping the person that no one else seems to want to lead and help. Leadership is within us all. And it's our choices every day. It's our decisions every day that are either shutting that leading down or opening up the way for that leader to lead. So I ask you again, when is the leader within you going to show up? I just launched my collective, this brand new idea that I launched now in the last couple of weeks. And as I launched that idea, I was so aware that so many people have this leader within them that just needs to get out. And sometimes you just don't know how to get it out. You know, I remember when I first stepping out into leadership, people would say, well, I was bossy, or I was too pushy, or I was too opinionated. Really, they were just shocked that I'd found my voice, if I'm honest. And yes, in the beginning of my leading, I was awkward and I wasn't very careful sometimes in the way that I would say things. And I needed someone to help me in how to say this better or do this better. But that comes by the willingness to at least begin the journey of leading. And sometimes we just need the encouragement, like Paul with Timothy. Fan the gift into flame. Get the gift in you prepared in season and out of season. And so I want to challenge every single one of us today to ask, where is the leader in you getting to lead? You know, in Hebrews 6 verse 7, it says this, it said, land that drinks in the rain that is often falling on it and produces a crop useful to those for whom it is farmed receives a blessing from God. But land that receives the rain that's often falling and only produces thorns and thistles becomes worthless, and it's in danger of being cursed and burnt down. It's a picture of saying, look, there's rain falling on all of our lives. All of our lives are being rained on with the wisdom that's in the Word of God, the wisdom that comes from the heart of God, maybe the wisdom we're learning from people around us. There's rain falling on our lives. And our job, therefore, is to allow that to turn into a crop that helps others, that feeds others. And that's what God continues to bless. But if we all the time are receiving the rain, receiving the wisdom, receiving the help, receiving the leadership, receiving the packed lunch, receiving the miracle, and yet we're not turning it around and producing a crop ourselves, then that becomes land that is wasteful. And actually it says it's in danger of being burnt down. And I don't want my life to always be drinking in what others bring and not allowing that to turn into a drink that goes into someone else's life. And so what land are you? Rain's falling on you, wisdom and blessing, and the Bible itself is right there available. That's rain into your life of knowledge. And so all of that is falling on our lives. I'm asking, what in return is the crop that you're going to hand to someone else? When is the leader in you going to be allowed to speak up? When is the leader within you going to show up? When you show up, when you're consistent, when you're obedient, when you're willing, when you are kind, when you are compassionate, when you are offering of your home, hospitality, whatever that looks like, whether it's being kind to a neighbor or to a friend, whenever you begin to express that kind of heart, that is the leader within you that begins to have a voice. And I just want to encourage us all to be the ones that make those choices that allow the leader within us to step up and speak out. So, my friend, leader, what are you going to lead today? Where are you going to lead today? And how will your week look different? Because the leader within you begins to become the leader that speaks and moves through you. Love you. Have a great week. Lead this week, your week. Lead with strength and lead with joy. And don't allow other things to drag you through the week, but instead lead away. Love you. Have a great rest of the week.